Thanks for your patience with me this morning, by the way, because I'm sure I don't do this as smoothly as Willie does it. So when I agreed to speak this morning, at the same time I accepted several other dates coming up in the next couple of months. And when I got off the phone with my dad, I looked down at the piece of paper that I had written all the dates on, and then I thought, oh my goodness, now I have to think of things to talk about. And I sat in my office for a while, and I kind of looked around for some inspiration about what I was going to talk about this January morning. And sitting on the edge of my desk was this brand new, beautiful calendar that we had been given for Christmas, and it was just waiting to be put up. And so just distract myself, I opened up the calendar and looked at some important dates that are coming up later this month for me personally. And at that moment in time, I started to think about what the month of January means to me personally. And there's two things that kind of stand out for me for January. And the first one is, thank goodness we've hit the middle of winter, fingers crossed. And the second is that it's my birthday month. So for me, this month is not only the ending of a year, but it's also the beginning of a year. But for society, of course, for most of us, January is the beginning of the year. It's what we consider to be this fresh new start to our lives. And along with that then came this thought of the traditions that come along with our new year. And one of those traditions is this concept of New Year's resolutions. Now, this is a concept that has never made a lot of sense to me personally because I'm very goal-oriented, so I work through goals through the entire year. But it kind of brought me to this wondering of why we do this. Where did this tradition come from, and why do we put it on the first of the year? And I discovered that actually the tradition of New Year's resolutions has been around for something like 4,000 years. Now, 4,000 years ago, when people were making New Year's resolutions, they were doing things that they thought would appease their gods. We've moved on a little bit from that, I think, most of us maybe, but that tradition has stayed in place. And then that reminded me that actually the first of the year has not always been January 1st. In fact, the first of the year was March 25th. And the Romans, somewhere around like 43 AD, decided that they were going to make January the first month from their god Janus. But the British Empire and the Western world did not adopt January as the first month of the year until 1752. So that means that for centuries, different parts of the world, and even now, if we think about Chinese New Year, right? Different parts of the world look at New Year's Day, the first of the year, on different days of the year. And it brought me back to this idea that I have always personally had, that New Year's, it doesn't have to be the only day that we make a resolution. I mean, really, a resolution is just a goal, right? And I have always been a big believer that every single day that we live is a fresh new start. It is a fresh opportunity for us to decide to do something new in our lives. And of course, I'm very curious. So my research kind of continued, and I discovered that 97% of people who make New Year's resolutions base them on personal desires. 97%. 45% of those people base their New Year's resolutions on weight loss, diet, and physical exercise. Now, not surprisingly, by the middle of January, 50% of people have already lost their drive with their resolutions. By the end of January, another 25%. Only 8% of people ever actually complete their New Year's resolutions. And variety of reasons for that, but you just brought me back to this idea of, do we feel the pressure of the tradition of New Year's in order to create that resolution, right? Tradition kind of puts a little pressure on us. And the other thing that was shocking to me was this 97% of people who base their resolutions on personal desires. And it made me really think about my own resolutions and my own kind of goal setting for the year, and how I am definitely missing out on maybe what I could be including in my resolutions. And the fact that making a resolution doesn't mean that it needs to last for a whole year. Maybe sometimes that's not appropriate. And of course, the other thing that came to mind is that the older that I get, I find that the less goals I make, because life changes, doesn't it? But it just got me along this train of thought. And so last week, I happened to be talking to a friend, and she about this idea of speaking about resolutions. And she said to me, I want to tell you a story. And she said, you know, a couple of years ago, I found out that a friend of mine in another province was going through something very difficult. She was starting to go through the recovery process of alcohol addiction. Now, this woman, she said she wanted to be there so badly for this friend, but she couldn't physically be there because they live in different provinces. And so right then, she made a resolution to herself personally that she was going to support that friend in however she could for however long is necessary. And she made that promise to herself that she was going to call every single week, even if it was just a voicemail or a 5-minute call. She was going to send something to her in the mail twice a month, a card, a letter, something fun, something to show that she was thought of and loved. And she did this for 11 months until she felt like that wasn't necessary anymore. And then she changed her resolution to continue, but in a different way. And she said that one of the unexpected benefits that came out of this resolution was that she felt useful. And it then brought me back to this idea that it doesn't really matter where we are in life. It doesn't really matter if we're still in a career, or if we are, what our finances are like, or anything like that. We can look at resolutions in a completely different way. Now, if only 3% of people that make resolutions are actually looking at them as, something externally, to me, this means I need to change the way I look at resolutions. And to go back to that idea that every single day is a new opportunity. So for me, if you guys are going to take anything away from today, I would ask you to consider, when you think about making resolutions in your own life, consider the outer world. How might we create resolutions that are to the service of others? How can we support our friends, our family, strangers, the community, the world, the environment? Sometimes a resolution, we want to say, my resolution is I want to lose that 25 pounds finally this year. Doesn't always work out that way. This year for myself, I decided that I'm taking my focus to a different level. And some of my own resolutions may be that I'm going to smile at someone every day, even if it's just myself in the mirror. I'm going to look at volunteering more, or maybe, donating 5 items to the food bank every year, because I came to a realization that the only time I ever donate is at Christmas. This is my resolution, right? Maybe it's a resolution to reach out to friends and family to spend more quality time with them. Or to go and talk to your neighbor. How many of us live in places that we don't necessarily know the person who lives next door? Maybe it's learning how to compost so that you can make a resolution to better the environment. It's just the concept, the idea that we can take our resolutions beyond ourselves. Now, I believe self-care and self-love is important, but I also believe that bringing our resolutions to an external factor could not only bring us joy, bring the world joy, and really create a difference. I found a couple of Bible verses that I think fit into this. So the first one is Romans 12:2, and it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." And to me, this says, don't succumb to the pressure of the outside world to shape your own resolutions. Make your resolutions what you want it to be and when you want to start it, not that pressure of tradition. How you personally want to better yourself and the world and the environment around you. And the second one is Psalm 90, verse 12, which says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." And to me, this is that reminder to be intentional about every day. Don't take any days for granted. Use every single day as a fresh new start to create a resolution or to work your way towards your resolution. And the very last thing that I'm going to mention today is that myself in my own business, I actually created 2 calendars for this year, a happiness calendar and a mindfulness calendar. Now, I normally sell these, but I brought some for you guys today. If you want, feel free to take one. Feel free to take one for yourselves. Feel free to take one for somebody else who you feel might need it in some inspiration. I have them in the hall, so afterwards, you're more than welcome to. And moving on. Thank you. We're going to go on to hymn